Hello, team. Thank you for joining us today. Good to see you. Today, we are talking all about why we need spaces in our magic and how utilizing spaces in different aspects will help your magic go to the next level. So let me bring in the guys here. How are we doing, everybody?
Hey, doing great.
Morning.
Good, good, good. We're talking all
Afternoon.
about, afternoon, right? Wherever you are, 5 o'clock
Yeah.
somewhere. All about spaces today, and what exactly we mean by that, and how that can come into play to make our magic bigger. So I'll start off and just explain real quick. We have a few different categories of spaces, and they are space. I got my notes right here, so I'll just kind of read off that. Spaces for reactions, spaces for between tricks, spaces in the pacing of your tricks, and then physical space to make the magic stronger. And so I feel like it'd be a great opportunity for us to kind of hit on some of these different topics while we have some time here, and take any questions that you guys might have as we go. Okay, so let me shoot it off to Rick, actually, because we were talking a little bit about this. First, would you maybe share a little bit about the space in the pacing? You were talking about practicing and things like that. Any tips you can give us for how to space out the pacing of our routines?
Yeah. So a few live streams ago, I forget which one, the topic of practicing with a metronome came up. And this is something I've done for years, playing guitar and stuff, just practicing scales or whatever I was learning at the time, practicing to a metronome. And, after years, that just gets ingrained into your brain. And no matter what you play, you just have this natural, I'll say a groove. It's not a rigid rhythm. You just you teach yourself this natural groove. So where that's important in magic is, you might see a lot of coin magic. Maybe if you browse through Instagram, some guys do really fast coin stuff, like maybe a spellbound routine. It's just like change, 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 change. And it's cool for magicians, but I mean, I don't think audiences are enchanted by that or believe that there's one coin transforming. So it's important to have a not too slow, not too fast pace to your routines, but also giving space in your routine to let the each little effect register. Because even in a larger coin routine, there's little effects within.
So Rick, would you say like
if each of those vanishes?
Would you say like if there was sheet music, your routine would be made up of quarter notes, half notes, whole notes, some rests? Like every single slight wouldn't have the same exact beat. Like one might take longer, or you might pause for longer or shorter in between, like writing music.
Right. Like take a coins across effect, for instance. There's four, 3 or 4 coins, however you do it. They're all gonna arrive in this hand, but you kind of want to pause so that the condition can register with your audience. So there's a pacing. There's many effects within this larger effect of the.
And I love that you point that out.
There's.
Yeah, for sure. I love you point that out, because it's like when we're practicing, we get so used to doing the effect over and over and over and over and over that in our brains it's not new, and we don't have to understand what just happened. So maybe that translates into the performance, because we're just used to doing it so fast, and so we got to keep doing it to practice more and more and more. But when you're doing it for an audience the first time they've seen it, they need to, like you're saying, Rick, understand. I think it was Hofstadter said, when this is why we talk about clarity so much here on the channel. I think Hofstadter was the one who said, when you're turning an orange into an apple, make sure it's clear that it's an orange. You know, like first they have to know really clearly this is what it was, and then now this is what it is, or else they're going to go, what just happened? You know?
Yeah, there's a great, I think it's in the book Designing Miracles, Darwin Ortiz quotes Ascanio, I think. And his definition of magic was the difference between the beginning condition and the ending condition. So if the audience is not crystal clear on where you started, by the time you finish, you may get no reaction at all because they didn't understand the conditions at the beginning.
Right, of course.
Clarity is super important.
Of course. And I wanted to point out one more cool thing as far as because we're talking about music, and some people that are watching may not know about sheet music and things like that. And that's okay. You don't have to. It's just that concept that music, just as humans, kind of reaches a different level with us. We can feel rhythm and understand flow. And when something feels right and the timing is good, it feels different than if it's kind of an abrupt or, unfluid thing. And that's part of why it's a really cool little secret that Slidini used to use, Tony Slidini. Look him up, great magician. He would, I believe it was 70 beats per minute is like the average heartbeat rhythm for a human. And so he would time his music or his magic to about 70 beats per minute, which is like a solid slowish, but not too slow kind of pace, so that it helped with the feeling, if that makes sense. Rick, you gotta turn your mic, Jeff.
Oh, my mic is off. I wonder if, as a performer, if you could help orchestrate like the collective like tempo of people's heartbeats and that kind of stuff. Because like when you're in front, like that's part of like why a lot of us who correlate music to our magic when we're performing, we correlate it to jazz, because you're jazzing, you're out there, and you don't know how the audience is going to respond, and it's kind of like you're improvising with the music and the instruments that are brought to your table. Which, if like any performance becomes kind of a dance with your audience, or an orchestra where you're the conductor and everybody plays a part by the magic getting their hands or their reactions, and so like this music kind of comes together in the moment. Like that's part of where you as a good conductor, since you're leading this group of people who's responding to your magic, we're talking about live magic, not Instagram, obviously, but the same can apply. Like you need to give that space for audience reactions and let them ponder and comprehend and create that clarity Rick was talking about. Because if you just do a vanish and the coin is gone, that may not register. But if you do the vanish and you wait the moment and you build up the anticipation, relax, and then it happens, well, then it registered that the coin was just there, or whatever the case is. You need to display the pre-existing condition, the ending condition. What Rick was quoting there is brilliant, and that's part of the spacing, is letting the audience comprehend. Because if you just flash something for a second, what was that? It's spacing, is display. Is display this coin right here. This is the one we're going to use. Whatever your pattern is, something more constructive than that, I hope, but it lets people identify, comprehend, so they can react, so they can relax, and then react again. You don't want to just bam, 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 bam effect. It would be overwhelming. It wouldn't be magical.
And that's part of that, and that's why when we're talking about music and everything, that's why the little intro image for this live was a piano, because they talk about the real music is the space between the notes, that kind of thing. And it's like, how do you create that space? So just piggybacking off of what you just said, Jeff, can we talk real quick about how we do that in this specific case when we're talking about spacing in the middle of a routine without being awkward? Like, how do we create those moments to allow them to register without like this awkward kind of, you know what I mean? Like, because maybe if we haven't tried that before, it would feel like, well, how am I supposed to implement this in my coin routine, right?
Yeah, I think it's by engaging and keeping the audience going and not leaving people out, and being in tune with what's going around you, being practiced. And I mean, let's face it, in a Las Vegas style show, like, I mean, they know, a lot of those guys know down to the second or the minute of how long the audience reaction is going to be, what they're going to be producing night after night, because it's very well scripted and they control the theater and the environment. But when we're going out performing, a lot of us, like, you have to intuitively kind of learn that and get into your gut. And everybody's going to, in a smaller crowd, you're going to get a more, a different sampling each time, versus if we know we have a theater of 1,000 people, we're going to have a sample of X amount of people and X amount of people that are going to react different ways, and we can kind of script and rehearse to it. But when you're sampling a table of 4 or 5 people, we don't know how it's going to go and how long they'll react or what kind of conversation they want to gain with you. So you've got to be flexible for those kinds of things, is what I'm trying to say. And to throw it back, I seriously studied music much more before I studied magic. And I remember when I was in young bands, we had the hardest time transitioning between songs, because we would end a song, we had to recollect ourselves, and we had to tune our guitars, ding, 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 and get everything back together. Okay, and the drummer has to count off the next song, and then we'll start over again. So you have all this dead space, which is way too much space, and would lose the audience's attention. And that can be the same thing in magic, like in between the magic moments, between the vanishes. It could be in between the tricks where you're like, oh, let me find that next trick in my pocket. Oh, no, not this deck. Oh, must be, is it this coin? No, it must be this one. Okay. You know, if you have those interruptions, your space becomes too large, and then your audience, just like a herd of cats or whatever, will start to wander and you lose their attention. So it's finding that right middle ground, you know, of how long a space should be in between effects, or in between complete sets or tricks, or in between tables even. Goodness, you know.
So just tracking here, if you don't know the space, you know, it can kind of be overwhelming, because now you're trying to think, well, how do I know? I don't know, you know, I don't want to mess it up. It's okay. It's all a learning process, and magic is like a study, right? So we do something, and then we come and we figure out, okay, how do I do that better? Then we go try it again, right? It's like a lifelong journey. And so it's not a bad thing. It's just, how do we figure out how to do that? And it's through practice and through performance. And so some practical tips, we talked about practicing to music. We've talked about that before. Just turn on your favorite song and see how you'll see how the music influences how you start practicing, right? We talked about we'll talk about a little bit about pocket management, I think, in a second, because that's a good point there, Jeff. But as far as just having those moments in the middle of effects, you know, you said being in tune with your audience. I think another point is possibly just trying to figure out reasons why. If you're going to vanish a coin, I don't have a coin nearby, but you were just vanishing a coin, you may be looking at it. It's almost, maybe you need to squeeze a little bit to create the, you know, and all the while they are creating the moment in their mind as they're watching. But you as the performer, you don't have to awkwardly stand there. You can like be doing something. Maybe you're going to wave your hand, right? Maybe you're trying to get the magic wand, you know. All of these are different options to purposely create that space in the timeline of the effect, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger, and I still to this day, when I'm practicing new effect, I will practice different lengths of time to see. You can feel it. If you're in tune with what's going on, you can feel if your audience is thinking, what's next? I mean, some of the great mentalists and the levitators, stuff like that, are the guys that master that, taking it, pushing it all the way to the end of the envelope of how long we can build suspense, you know, before it's too long, you know, before we lose our attention. So,
right.
Good thoughts.
So these are practical ideas that you can start with your magic today, implementing in your practice and your performance. Just start testing things. You know, that's the fun of it, is trying to figure out, how do I make this even better and better. So I want to point out real quick a couple comments here. Shiloh brought up Red Motorcycle, which is a little shout out to our recent Copper Silver release. Jeff used the phrase Red Motorcycle to break down a slight. You got to see it, so get the Copper Silver release. It's a good exercise, so that's a good point there. And Stephen talks about, Vernon says confusion is not magic. Good point, absolutely. And we got a question real quick. How do you optimize transitions between illusions? And that's what I'd like to talk about next. Go ahead.
I'll start. I don't mean to take the floor anymore, Rick, if you got something to say, but if you mean like stage illusions, like when I'm performing on stage, like transitions, I use music. Like I always have pre-recorded sets of clips of music that run anywhere from 10 to 25, 30 seconds. And those help me, if I'm doing a one-man show, move things on and off. And hopefully it's upbeat. Sometimes I'll get the audience clapping along to the music, and they're clapping, entertaining themselves while I set up the next trick. So if you're talking about stage illusions on up big, I think music is key. You know, you can obviously have a host or a MC or something like that if it's not a one-man show, but that's the way I would do it.
How about close-up? What do we think about close-up? Any thoughts on that, Rick?
Yeah, I try my best to string together stuff that there's some kind of natural transition there already. Like one of my favorite things to go from cards to coins is, I want to say it's originally with Larry Jennings, but it's the transposition of a selected card and a coin. So a card is selected, put back into the deck, and you put the deck down, and then you pull a coin out of your pocket, and then the coin changes to the selected card. You cut the deck to supposedly where the card came from, and boom, there's the coin right there. So things like that will create a natural transition from a set of card tricks or one card trick right into a coin trick. So you could go from that into a one coin routine, or maybe that turns into a spellbound routine. And then go from there. Now that you have introduced coins, it's easier to go from maybe one coin effect to another coin effect. It's hard when we start switching the props. So like cards to coins, and then to ropes or some other prop. That makes it more complicated. But yeah, looking for any natural transitions or similarities, coincidences from this trick to that trick, you know, that tends to work more easily.
That makes sense. Yeah. So when you're changing those props, if you can incorporate the two props together into something, then it's easier to go from this one and incorporate it and then go to the next one, kind of thing. What about scripting? We were just talking about scripting like last week. Any thoughts on maybe scripting, Jeff, that has to do with
I mean, actually, I agree with what Rick's saying. And one of the things that can be just a theme throughout your magic, like again, I talked about training with the comics and a callback. You know, just having that callback, just a line or a buzzword or a reaction, which could be as simple as the audience applauding or knowing the right time to applaud, can be that theme that can unite. It's like, okay, the audience is applauding and they're telling each other the trick is over. So what's next? You know, you just pull out something different. You know, now it's a deck of cards. And it could be that simple. It could be more themed, as I'm going to show you 3 things that are impossible and 1 thing that's inconceivable. And that's one of my kind of theme things I've worked with in the past. But it's, you know, it could be, here's the first impossibility, here's the second impossibility, and they could just be linked by the buzzword that they are impossibilities. And then this thing is mind-numbingly not even on the radar of been possible in the realm of humanity for all of eternity. And so you could have some kind of theme like that. Those are just some suggestions. Basically, just find things that are consistent. That, okay, every time we applaud, or every time I know a famous magician here in Houston, he had this beautiful line, which I won't say right here because I don't want to get stolen on his part, but he would basically ask for people he'd ask for tips or a response. He would say it like just this really cool 3-part line. And he said it after every effect. And at the very end, people are giving him money, and people are applauding, and people are saying his buzzword. All 3 things that he asked for. And 20 minutes into the set, every single person in the audience is either thinking guilted that they're not giving him tips, or they're giving him money. They're applauding, and they're saying his buzzword. And it's just like they're all united. And every trick can be different because they end with the same conclusion. You kind of like pull back full circle, like Rick said earlier, you know, like it's the new state. Like the trick is over. Here's our completed state of mind. We recite the words, we do the actions.
And another way to do it, there's so many different ways to make the transitions between effects. It's like no right or wrong way necessarily. You just want to find the flow that works for you and your audience. And so another way to think about it is kind of like what we do on this live stream at times. We talk, we do our little bit that we want to talk about, we explain something, and then we comment or work with the comments that you guys are leaving and like kind of interact with you. So you might want to do an effect and then kind of interact with the people and like see how they're doing, what they're into. What do you do for a living, And let me show you something else, kind of try to relate that to what you're doing, something like that.
Yeah, and if you're jazzing and you have more than one 3-trick set in your pocket, then you know the right direction to go. Like it's a fork in the road. You hear something new, like you ask those questions, you interact, and then let's not do that trick. Let's do this one.
Good call. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's all about just practicing and trying these things out and not being afraid to get out there and, just try things out and learn from them. That's the fun of it, right? So we talked about space in tricks. We talked in pacing. We talked about space in between tricks. How about space for reactions? Like, how important is it for us to kind of leave a little room for the reaction to breathe? Rick?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in on that. And I remember early on, when I was starting to gain confidence, and I kind of knew I was pretty good. I would get reactions. I would get reactions from people sometimes that was total silence. I'd finish the trick, and I'd look up at them. And I felt like there was no reaction. And I thought, did I flash? Did I mess up? But most of the time, silence is one of the strongest reactions. Because what's going on in that person's head is, like I mentioned before, they're calculating the distance between that beginning condition and the ending condition. And they're backtracking and they're searching inside their head. That's what that silence is. So if you let that moment breathe, then they'll usually have some kind of reaction. I don't know what I just saw. How did you do that? So don't get nervous about that silence. And don't stare at them either. But let the moment breathe. And then try to feel for the next moment to continue on to your next effect or whatever or just talk to them like, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
And you find that leaving that space kind of helps to create that bigger reaction, right? You give them a chance. You don't have to like run to the next trick. It's like you give them a chance to absorb it.
Yeah, you don't want to be like, watch this. What do you think of that? Like, don't stare at them and just some of the best advice I got a long time ago was show that you are surprised by the magic as well. Like, don't look. The funnest part is to see people's reactions, but don't immediately look at someone after you finish the trick.
You have to build that trust first, I think, before you can look at them.
Right.
Like you have to build that trust. And that first effect is probably not it. But if you have a rapport and you've done the magic in their hands, like that next time, that second time, particularly as a little kid, man, just stare them in the eyes and like just smile with them. It's one of the greatest feelings in the world.
So it's interesting because there's a couple of magicians I've seen. Al Snyder is one of them, and Bob Sheets talks about this too. I think it is, but it's like the idea that you shouldn't. They believe that you shouldn't ever look at the audience during the climax moment of the effect, because that's when the audience is most vulnerable. Like they're sitting here questioning what just happened. They feel a little like off, unbalanced because so they construct a pretend reason why they're not going to look at them for like a couple seconds, and whether that's putting the props away or I've seen like Danny DeRortiz, he's really good at like, man, but you shuffled, how did it, so he's not like engaged, he's letting you breathe.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like construing this way. So you don't have to be awkward about it and just kind of like not know what to do and stare at them. But for the first couple seconds or that first trick, like you said, before you develop the rapport, you can create a reason why you want to give them room without, being awkward about it.
Yeah. Did you say with Tamariz, did he talk about that? Like, did you ever hear him speak on it?
I mean,
He's the one that gave me complete freedom on it. Like,
oh no, I haven't studied with Tamariz. No.
oh, okay. I thought you studied with I was thinking you studied at magic school with some Tamariz.
I studied with Danny Ortiz. Yeah.
Danny Ortiz. Okay, that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Yeah, he's the one that I got that kind of thing from, where he will. I mean, I'm at times I'm sure he engages with it and looks at the people and that kind of thing. But there are moments, and maybe that's what you're saying, is like initially before you build that rapport.
If you don't have that trust rapport, yeah,
right.
Now I watched Tamariz when I don't care what language he's performing, but watch him if you can find some videos here on the YouTube or wherever, and watch how he will work into reaction, and then you like just see him engage in full wonder with the spectator, and it's just like when you get there now, it's without a trust, you can't. The person is too vulnerable; they're not going to share that experience with you. But if there's trust and there's vulnerability with you and them both, like you're sharing your vulnerability, and they can feel that and sense that, it's one of the most epic. It's the most epic moment of magic that I can come up with. I mean that space and being able to share that. And
these things, keep in mind, and just for everybody watching, is that what the things we're talking about are very dependent on your situation and who you are as a performer. So it's great to hear all these different things, but I'm just thinking out loud as well, like when you're at a restaurant and you're just approaching a table, it would be kind of creepy if you stared them in the eyes, like with wonder. But when you've already done a trick or two for them and they love you, it would be awesome, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like
I know.
When they feel, because they're burning your hands, they're staring at you. So
right.
When you have the right, and you may not get that right, or that's what I'm saying, sensing that, knowing that reaction. So I wish I could share it with you guys. I got when I lived in a small town in America, I got front page on the Columbia Tribune, and it was me and this little girl like reacting to the magic moment together. And it's kind of cool. I've got like this moment like in concrete of like what it was, and like that's my epic. When I think of what we're talking about right now, I think back to that little front page picture I had of us sharing this moment. It's burned in my memory because of that photograph, but just because of how powerful it was.
Yeah. And I think some of it's fun talking about this because every character in magic is different. Every performer is different. And some of your, like what you're saying, Jeff, Tamariz, Christopher, who I see is in the comments here, he's talked to us before about his character of like a goofy uncle. All those characters would be perfect for like the engagement. But someone like Dan Sperry, if he stared at you, would be like really creepy,
No,
like maybe that would be good.
Disagree. No, watch Sperry work, man. I don't know. I see what
you're saying. In a good way.
I don't want people to miss out on this, man. I think that's the most beautiful thing about Sperry. Like I saw him one time take a little 6-year-old girl by the hand up on stage. It's creepy. Edward Scissorhands, Dan Sperry. Like who would trust their child with this person? And the parents let her go. And it was just beautiful. It was amazing. Like, she just came up to help him. I don't know if it was a lifesaver trick, like he helped undo it or something before he put it through his neck or something. Yeah. It's creepy Sperry. And it was like, there was this trust. It was amazing. Like, no, I don't know.
No, I agree with
you. I guess, but
I agree with you. I just think that it creates different responses in different scenarios, which is a cool thing to study,
Yeah. And I'm not giving anybody freedom to be a creep or do something that's wrong or,
no, I know.
I'm just saying that, I think that it's like one of the beauties of our art form is it's a live art, and it is when you can perform it with spectators and perform it live in interaction. I think that for me it's the pinnacle. Like I wouldn't want anybody to miss out on it if they can't have it.
That's awesome. Absolutely. I want to point out one little thing here. This kind of relates to our other topic, but pointed out that he said. He said, practicing calming and breathing techniques translates well into effective pacing and rhythm. That's another good point. If you can calm yourself, you can help calm the audience as well. So we talked about performance nerves like just a live stream or two ago. So check that out. That would be a good point as well. So we pretty much talked about reactions, space in reaction, space between tricks, space in the pacing. Last little thing to highlight real quick is physical space. How can physical space, we have to be physically distant right now in a lot of scenarios, but how can the physical space improve the magic? Any thoughts on that? And I'll give a little bit of a understanding. The way that I was thinking about this when I put this into the notes was kind of when you are going to step away subtly from the moment of magic. Like let's say you load your wallet, with the card, and you set your wallet down, and then you do some, you show the card is vanished, right? And now, or even like let's say the traveler wallet, you have the coin secretly, loaded in there, and nobody knows, and the coin vanishes from here. And now when they go to look in the wallet, you're so far away from the coin that in their mind it's more impossible because you never came near it, right? Just because you were thinking about space.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes to mind. And there's two different kinds of spaces. There's the time space, time of since I last touched it, and then the physical space. And maybe you guys come up with a couple more, but that spacing of he hasn't been near that since he set it down when he first walked to the table, or he was all the way on the other side of the room. Like those kind of things amplify because he's the sleight of hand man, she's the sleight of hand gal. And so, they had to be doing something sneaky with their hands. But if the hands weren't there, then that closes out most of people's explanations. Are just they're gone out the window.
Good point.
And there's also creating physical space to make your magic bigger, play bigger. It'll also improve your angles.
Oh, yeah.
So you open yourself up to different effects. So let's say 3 fly, instead of doing it for 3 or 4 people, if you're at a gathering, you say, let me take a few steps back. So yeah, come on over here, guys. You're going to love this. You can involve a bigger crowd. Therefore, you've made this great trick even bigger and better because you're going to get more reactions from more people. And you could, because you're back further, you could try riskier moves that are a little more angle sensitive, because now you've brought this cone of viewing, out to here, so you can try, arming stuff or back thumb palm stuff and crazy angle stuff.
It's cool. I was watching.
So physical space can make your magic even bigger.
Sure. I was watching our Insights download with Danny Goldsmith that we released with Danny Goldsmith, and he had like a little diagram where he was explaining the further you back away from your audience, the better your angles get. And it made perfect sense when he like demonstrated it with a little diagram. And he can do some, crazy looking. I mean, he's shown all of us, and those are the kind of crazy visual things you can do when you manage that space, right?
Yeah, so it's a great thing to do. Back up and then extend out as big as you can. But say you're not set up for the trick. Hey, you guys come over here and make a body turn. Forgot to reset the last table. Bring more people in. Well, just there's always a reason to bring more people in, get it bigger reactions. It's a good line to have in your toolkit for sure.
Oh yeah, and just to tie the bow at the end, ways to do that without being awkward. Right, because we don't want to make it obvious that we're stepping away because of angles. One of the things that you kind of mentioned, this is kind of an old trade show workers hack, is put something in one person's hand and then kind of step back and get other people involved. And now that person can't move.
Yeah,
they like psychologically feel like they got to stand here, right?
Yeah. They're committed. They're invested whether they bought a ticket or not.
So you set your one end of your stage with that person as the post, and then you step back, and now you bring other people in, and now you kind of got this whole stage set up.
Yep, you filled your space.
Like exactly. And then there was another thing I wanted to point out that was just funny. Pop Hayden has a routine. We're missing a lot of performers. You got always study other performers because there's so much good knowledge. Pop Hayden has a good routine where he's doing like a 6-card repeat. And at one point in the routine, he goes, "Must be like the mathematics in this room." And so he takes like 3 steps to the left, and it's like, okay, now it works. And I was just thinking that's like a little justification for like, you know what I mean? You could utilize. Why are you moving? Well, let me see. The wind, in the room here is not quite right. That kind of thing. So yeah, there's ways around this stuff. So.
Yep.
And Matt pointed out, Matt, what's up, man? This is my buddy Matt. Good to see you in here. He said, works both ways. Sometimes a super intimate space enhances the magic, such as making a coin disappear from their hand. So yeah, creating that space or closing in on that space in a specific situation.
Yep.
Good point. Good point. Well, any final thoughts? I think we talked through reaction space and reaction space between tricks, space between the pacing and physical space. If you guys have any comments or anything, as always, leave them in the actual comments of this video, and we can get to them throughout the week. Any other suggestions for topics or performance videos, you know where to send them. We got our email here, team@copelandcoins.com. If there's nothing else that we got to say, I've been Caleb. This is Jeff and Rick. Thank you guys for joining us. Go make beautiful magic.